Well, good morning. It is Monday, April 6th. A couple different reminders for you this morning. Don't forget today's the day that you'll need to bring all of your quizzes and tests that you've completed and exchange them for all the quizzes and tests that you'll need for the following weeks. We'll be available here from 8 o'clock to 4 o'clock. Make sure you bring those by. If you have any questions about that, you can call the school office concerning that. I also put in the front of your envelope of the quizzes and tests a lesson plan. Here's a lesson plan for really the rest of the month. What it has the dates right here, and then corresponding with those dates, what you have here is you have the different subjects, and all you need to do is look at the date, and you'll be able to see what lesson you're supposed to be on for that subject. I know there's been a little bit of questions about that. And also you can tell and see what you're supposed to be behind, but obviously you can see that you're supposed to be dealing these 4 subjects, plus the video that I'm sending you here this morning you should be looking at as well. I also sent you an email through My School Works, and with a couple different updates. That email will also has an attachment of this lesson plan, so that way if you want to have it digitally or if you want to print an extra one at home, you can do that. So make sure you, those different things, be sure to come by the school from 8 o'clock to 4 o'clock today to exchange the quizzes and tests. And then secondly, look in My School Works. I sent you an email so that way you can see a couple different updates of what's been going on and also get the lesson plan as far as the digital copy. But there's a physical copy in the packet that I'm sending home today. Let's go ahead and look at our Bibles. Proverbs chapter number 6. Proverbs chapter number 6. Today we're going to be talking about an individual, the sluggard or slothful. You're going to see that this word is pretty much only used, or the Hebrew word that's used to translate it is pretty much only used in the book of Proverbs. The reason being is Solomon is trying to warn his son against really being what a sluggard is, what slothful is. Sluggard is the noun form, slothful is the adjective form. And we're going to look at a little bit about what this means and what we're trying to do so that way we don't have the characteristics or the character traits of being a sluggard. We're also going to look at an individual. The Bible talks about a naughty person. This is kind of a generic term for a wicked person or ungodly person. But we're going to look at this. We see here in verse number 1 and also in verse number 20 that Solomon addresses it. It's a reminder, my son. He personally addresses his son, my son. And what he's trying to do is he's giving him advice for life. Each and every one of us, whether it be your age or my age, to be honest with you, need advice for life, especially your age. Because here's the thing, you're going to learn that it's a whole lot easier to get something right before it's messed up and then try to fix it after it has been messed up. And honestly, that's what Solomon's trying to do with his son. My son. We see in verses number 1 through 5, it talks about really a good thing for life is letting your friend borrow money. That's what that word surety means in verse number 1. Verse number 1 talks about surety for thy friend. Letting them borrow deals with interest, but what you should do and the warnings against it. I'll be honest with you, it's a rule of thumb. If somebody needs to borrow money from them, honestly, I just give it to them, and if I get it in return, that's great. If I don't, then I don't worry about it. If I don't have the ability to give it, just outright give it to them, I'm not going to be concerned about letting them borrow it and having to repay me at a certain time. Why? Because the Bible really warns against this, and it gives pretty stiff warnings against this. So as a rule of thumb, that's what I do in my life. Let's go ahead and look at, but continue to go down. Verse number 6, it says, go to the ant, thou sluggard, consider her ways, and be wise. We're seeing here that the ant, consider her ways and be wise. We see that the ant is a small little individual, sometimes an annoying little individual from our perspective, but we see we can learn some valuable truths from it. Let's see what it says in verse number 7. Which having no guide, overseer, or ruler. Meaning it doesn't have somebody constantly telling it what to do. Constantly telling it to do this, pick up this, or go there, or clean this out. Doesn't have anybody, but what does it do? Provideth her meat in the summer, and gathereth her food in the harvest. Whenever you see an ant, it's always working. Always. In the process of maybe when it bites you, it's probably protecting itself and protecting really all the other ants by biting you to say, hey, get out of my way, or hey, don't be here, or don't mess with me, or go away. But really, when we see an ant, it's always working, always working. So what it's doing is Solomon is warning the sluggard. First of all, let's define what a sluggard is. A sluggard is a person habitually lazy. Another way of describing it is idle, inactive. Okay? Idle, inactive, habitually lazy. That's what the sluggard is. And that's what Solomon's trying to warn us against being. And honestly, I think that's a very good warning, especially during this time right here, where we have the tendency where we don't have a regular schedule or set things that we need to accomplish, a lot of set things that we need to accomplish for the day, and we have the tendency to be lazy. A sluggard nowadays would also be described as a couch potato. Someone who could just sit and watch TV all day and not do anything. A sluggard is an individual who could just watch and play video games all day and all night, and they won't do anything for themselves. They won't do anything. A sluggard is an individual that could scour social media all day long and not worry about any of the responsibilities that he needs to take care of. That's what a sluggard is. That's what we would say a sluggard is nowadays. We see an individual that, in contrast to that, is the ant. Let's go ahead and look at verse number 9. Verse number 9, it says, "How long wilt thou sleep, O sluggard? When wilt thou arise out of thy sleep?" A sluggard, from the Bible perspective, is an individual who would be willing to sleep all day long. An individual who would stay in his pajamas all day long, sleep, and not have to worry about the responsibilities. That's what a sluggard is. That's what a slothful individual is. The Bible and Solomon is warning against being a sluggard. Like I said, during these times, we can have the tendency to do that. I can have the tendency to do that. But there are things that I need to accomplish, things that I need to work out throughout the day, and things that I need to do. We need to make sure that we aren't living the life of a sluggard. Go to the ant. Look at it. Consider her ways. She's always working. The ant is always doing what she's supposed to do, and the ant is always looking to the future. What it does is it gathereth the meat in the summer, and what it does, it also gathers in the harvest time. It's always looking forward for the future, so that way they can have plenty of supply. Verse number 10, what does the sluggard say? "Yet a little sleep, a little slumber, a little folding of the hands to sleep." If you will, another way of looking at that is the sluggard constantly hits the snooze button. Or does it maybe even set an alarm? What they're doing is they're constantly rolling back and forth on their bed. The sun's out, but they're trying to cover it with their pillow, and they don't want to see anything about there. They're trying to make everything dark so that way they can just go back to sleep. That's what a sluggard does. That's what the Bible is saying a sluggard is. Notice what the consequence of the sluggard, verse number 11. "So shall thy poverty come as one that traveleth." So pretty much what happens is when you run out of money and you're on vacation. That's what happens to the sluggard. They think they can have fun, they can do all these different things, but ultimately what happens is the fact that their laziness catches up with them and they don't have anything left for them to go to. They didn't look towards the future. They didn't prepare for the future. And that's what happens. Look at verse number 12. A naughty person. Another way of saying this, or the words that are used with this, synonyms with this in the Bible, are wicked, ungodly, evil, ungodly men. That's what a naughty person is. Naughty person, a wicked man, walketh with a froward mouth. There's that word froward again. And I want you to remember what that word froward is, especially as you read through the book of Proverbs. Word froward, difficult to deal with, someone that's contrary. An individual who's ungovernable. Ungovernable. I think that's important for us to see. Not willing to yield or comply with what is required. A froward individual is whenever you ask them to do something, they always give you a hard time about it. They always give you excuses. They're always looking for a way to get out of it. They're ungovernable. They aren't willing to listen. They don't want to listen to any type of authority. They don't want to listen to what people tell them to do. That's what a froward is. And to be honest with you, it's unfortunate, but that we're growing up in a society that are raising froward individuals, that are raising froward young people, where they're even encouraging it, where you're supposed to protest, where you're supposed to do this, and that if you feel this is right, you're supposed to stand up to your authority, you're supposed to stand up for what's your rights. And there's nothing wrong with your First Amendment speech, but honestly, what many people have forgotten is that we're supposed to pass everything through, everything that we think, everything that we're proposing, and we're supposed to pass it through the filter of Scripture. If it doesn't pass the filter of Scripture, then we shouldn't continue going forward with it. But what happens is individuals want to keep going and want to keep pressing, and what they've done is they've completely removed Scripture, and they've done everything that they wanted to do. We talked about last week how every man did that which was right in his own eyes. They did whatever they wanted to. And that's what a froward person does. They're ungovernable. They don't comply. They don't yield. They don't listen. And notice there's a couple descriptions. He winketh with his eyes, verse 13. He speaketh with his feet. He teacheth with his fingers. Frowardness is in his heart. He deviseth mischief continually. He soweth discord. Soweth discord means he's constantly trying to get people to fight, get people to back and forth. Or if you will, constantly trying to drive a wedge between individuals. Constantly trying to get two sides where they can't come together, where there's a huge division and they can't meet. That's what a froward or a naughty person does. Notice verse number 15. Therefore shall his calamity come suddenly. Suddenly shall he be broken without remedy. We see these individuals have talked extensively about sluggard or the slothful. Whenever the Bible or the book of Proverbs specifically talks about sluggard or slothful, that's what we're thinking. Individuals that are lazy, that are idle, that are inactive, that they don't want to get up. Habitually lazy. I think that's a good way of describing it. There's a lot of valuable things that you can gather from this chapter. Some of you have even memorized the next several verses. These 6 things does the Lord hate. Lastly, I want to move down to verses numbers 20 through 23, and we'll look at those quickly. Verse 20, my son, keep thy father's commandment and forsake not the law of thy mother. Again, listening to those individuals that God has put in your life as authority figures to help you, to guide you. That's what the father and mother are for. Or individuals that maybe, whether you don't have a father or a mother or whatever it is, individuals that God has placed in your life to help guide you, instruct you. Bind them continually upon thy heart and tie them about thy neck. Verse 21. When thou goest, it shall lead thee. Meaning those instructions are going to lead you. When thou sleepest, it shall keep thee. I think that's important right there. We're going to just look at 2 more phrases as that's one of them. I think that phrase is important right there because what it does is it allows you to sleep and it allows you to lay your pillow at night without regret. There are different things that your parents and authority figures in your life have you do that sometimes you don't understand. Sometimes you don't see the reasoning behind it, and sometimes you feel like they're doing things just to make your life difficult. But in reality, what they're trying to do is they're trying to save you from a lot of heartache or save you from a lot of regret. So that way you can lay your pillow at night not regretting the things that you've done. So what you need to do is you need to obey. You need to yield to them. Don't be froward. Don't be contrary. Don't go against them. Don't be foolish. Listen to what they have to say. Learn. Sometimes they tell you those things because they've learned from the same mistakes that you're about to make. That's what Solomon is trying to teach his son. That's what our parents are trying to teach us. And I want you to look at verse number 23. For the commandment is a lamp and the law is light. They're guides. They help us. They help us to see in this dark world. And I want you to see, and reproofs of instruction are the way of life. I think that phrase really hit me this morning. Reproofs of instruction are a way of life. Because here's the thing. No matter where you go, no matter what you do, no matter what area that you live, no matter what job you take or vocation that you choose, you're always going to have reproofs. They're a way of life. Meaning somebody's going to tell you, you're doing that wrong, you need to do it this way. You may not like that. You may not want that. Nobody likes to be told that they're wrong. But as a matter of fact, what we need to understand is that they're a way of life. That there's something that we need to get used to. So don't be afraid of it, or don't buck against it, or don't do things where it's like, I hate this, I wish this wasn't a part of my life. Don't do that. Why? Because it's a way of life. It's a way of what's going to happen to us, and it's just going to happen. So don't be afraid of that. Let's go ahead, just as a review, we talked about the fact that what a sluggard is, not willing to yield or comply. A sluggard is a lazy person, habitually lazy. Talked about a naughty person, a froward person. Make sure you don't have these characteristics in your life. Make sure you listen to the guides that are placed in your life that we see in verses 20 through 23. So that way you can live without regret. So that way you don't have to go the same road that many of us went down. So that way you can lay your pillow at night without regret. Thank you. Hope you were able to get some truths this morning. Have a good day.